is clearly a multiple vortex tornado. You've got these vortices rotating around a common axis, which is the core of this tornado. And again, more than likely, this is right on top of downtown Coleman right now. Let's pan over to the left.
Oh my goodness. Look at that.
Are you kidding me?
Look at all the stuff flying around up there.
That's coming over near Interstate 359 in Skyland. Nobody should be out there.
A few moments ago, I had an opportunity in Air 1 to observe the damage from about 500 feet, and to say the least, it is massive. I would estimate on a 3 to 4 mile stretch of the city, at some parts more than a half mile wide, we have utter destruction. We have neighborhoods that have basically been removed from the map. We have businesses that will no longer be able to engage in commerce. And we've got thousands upon thousands of citizens who have lost all of their possessions.
The storm itself was scary, but the scariest part was after that quiet. And hearing people yelling for help and not being able to do anything because you're the person that needs help too.
April 2011. There was a series of tornadoes that hit in Alabama, and it was very public. It was very much on all the media sites, and I remember watching it and reading about it and thinking, we should do something.
The reason I wanted to go to Pleasant Grove is it was recent. I think it was the week of that we went down there. Past events had been, months to even years afterwards, so it was still fresh. And I wanted to get down there right after it happened.
And I specifically remember going immediately to my Facebook page and posting on my status, who is going to help? I'm going to come jump in the van, what church is going. I just felt like I really, really needed to be there.
And so within a few days, we jumped in the vehicle and we drove down. And it was a 14-hour drive. The city we went to was Pleasant Grove, Alabama, just outside of Birmingham, about a half hour from Tuscaloosa. And they had National Guard set up all around the city. You couldn't just go in just to gawk. You had to have a reason to be there. They were trying to keep looters and people who shouldn't be there out, so that the people who needed to do the work could be in and work. Their curfew was 9 p.m. And so we left very early in the morning and got there 8:55 on a Saturday night. And we met the National Guard at their checkpoint, and they waved us in.
I remember just walking down the street and was so overwhelmed and consumed with emotion. You can try to explain it to people over and over what you visually saw and all the pictures I took with my camera, but it doesn't do you. You can't protect your heart. I remember seeing children's teddy bears that were covered in dirt and just thrown in the front yard of a house that used to stand there. Children's toys. I think the thing with the kids really hit home because I have 3 children of my own.
The church sat kind of up on a hill, and as we walked down the hill, it was like Armageddon. It was just, the hair stood up on my arms, and I'm getting teary-eyed now. I mean, that's how it was then. I'd never seen so much devastation.
I mean, there's mattresses and trees, cars flipped. I mean, there's no good explanation for it other than complete devastation.
And we went down the street. And what we saw is it looked like if God had a lawnmower that was 1.5 miles wide. He just took it over the town. There were trees that were hundreds of feet tall that were left as just 8-foot stubs. And all of the trees were that way. And so some of these stubs had debris that were wrapped in them. Some of them had mattresses. There was one stub that actually had a car up in the tree. And if you looked at the houses and the lots, you would walk along and it would be just a pile of rubble and then another pile of rubble. There would be a house that would have maybe one room that wasn't destroyed, that was still together. It looked like an IKEA catalog, just picture of a bedroom, but the rest of the house was destroyed around it. And it was as far as you could see and as far as we could walk. We went 4 blocks and we were surrounded by devastation. It was Armageddon. And we were overwhelmed. It was, I'll never forget that day. it makes you think, what must it have been like to be the person who's in that house?
I went into the closet. I had a little closet in the center of the house, and I went in and I took my radio, my cell phone, and of all things, my car keys. And it was as if something put his hands over my eyes, or I closed my eyes. The next moment, and I'm saying moment now, it wasn't a minute, it was a moment. I was sitting in the middle of nothing. The walls are gone, I could see just stumps of trees sticking up. I couldn't see a house.
And we have a corner of the basement we consider our safe room. We went down there, and when the storm hit, we could hear trees falling on the house. They made big thumps on the roof. And we come up, and the trees had fallen into 2 of our bedrooms, almost destroying the rooms, and there was a large tree laying on our bed that we normally sleep in.
And it took us 2 or 3 days, mainly just walking around on foot, to locate everybody and to find out where they were and that they were okay or being cared for, or do something to help them move forward. And that was a pretty intense time. We had people that came from Michigan. We had people that came from New York. We had one guy that came from Hawaii, flew over here to help. I mean, people came from Florida. There's people came from all over the country to help. And it was extraordinarily inspiring to have all these people come in and participate. Yeah.
Our team would go out and we would patch roofs. We would move trees that had fallen on homes or in driveways or on roads. Our team would go alongside people and sort through the rubble of what used to be their home and help them try to salvage anything they could.
We sat down and just dug, and I found her car keys, and what the main thing she wanted was pictures of her granddaughter. That was, she didn't care if we found anything else. She wanted any personal mementos.
And so we did that for 3 days. And after 3 days, we drove back. But I was quiet because this was a new experience for me. I had been on mission trips before, but this was first response. This was relief efforts. This was kind of at the moment where everyone's nerves were stripped bare and everything was very new and real and emotional. And they just were desperate. They were at their rock bottom. And to be able to be at that moment and to be able to provide one thing for them, get them one step closer toward normalcy, it stuck with me.
Actually, tell you the truth, during the Pleasant Grove trip, I remember looking at Greg and just seeing some wheels turn. There was a fire that had got lit with him, and I think that trip really did change him. And I think that's kind of where the baby started.
I think DRAW came from the need that Greg saw in the disaster relief arena. There were needs that there were things that people needed that weren't getting to them after these disasters, whether it was a tornado or a hurricane or whatever it may be. And he took it upon himself to create a system to get those things to those people that needed them. So that's where DRAW came from.
When you would go to a relief site, tarps were like gold. You couldn't find tarps. When you found a tarp, you're like, oh, finally, we needed to patch this wall that had a giant hole in it, or a roof that the debris that had been picked up in the storm had ripped a hole in. And so all these organizations that do great work, it seemed like there was this gap of supplies that could be given to people in mass after natural disasters. And so after a lot of thought, I Started to have conversations with people that I trusted, people that I loved, people that I knew were equally as passionate about serving people as I was, and I said, what would it look like if we started an organization that was a disaster relief organization?
What I remember very clearly about DRAW coming into existence was a lunch that I had with Greg Martin, and he said to me, "Tom, I think we could do the same thing right here in Oakland County. I think we could have our own organization that would come around and be a place for people in our community to work, to make a boots on the ground difference for people that are trying to recover from a very disastrous, heartbreaking situation."
His passion was disaster relief, helping others, and so he got me excited about it, and I just said, I'm there for you.
We need a warehouse. We need to start. We could bring people in to help get this thing started. Of course, I thought, he's crazy. There's no way. But the more he was talking about it, the more I could see his enthusiasm was contagious, and that this thing would catch fire.
I'd say the most exciting thing watching the inception of DRAW is the bucket. We talked about trying to have a central theme that you could hang on to from a branding perspective, so you could recognize that this just wasn't another organization asking for money that you had no idea where it was going. So Greg and I sort of focused on coming up with an iconic visual, which is a 5-gallon bucket that basically has the DRAW logo on it, and he's found a way to utilize that through his experience to have different buckets that do different things at these disasters. One might have cleaning supplies, one might have some tarps for a roof, on and on. So I think that's become synonymous with DRAW. The logo on the side of the bucket, people seeing him and his team, the drummers that play on these things at some of the different fundraisers and memorial parades, things like that.
It was happening so fast, and so many people jumped on board. I think back now, I'm still overwhelmed the number of people who said, I want to help this idea, because it was just an idea.
The thing that I really believe and that I've learned is that people want to help. Sometimes it's just knowing where to do that. And I really do believe too that, there's a place for people wanting to just be able to support an organization, to be able to write a check and to do that. And then there's another place where people really do want to get involved, but they just don't know quite how to do that. I've had people tell me, oh, I've been on the Red Cross, website too looking, but I'm not qualified, or I'm not this, or I'm not that. I mean, in DRAW, we can use everybody.
When you're a part of DRAW, when you are someone who comes to the warehouse and fills buckets, when you're someone who stands up and says, I'll be a first responder after a storm, your efforts go farther than you would ever know. When you're someone who writes a check, when you're someone who spreads the word, when you're someone who helps other people find out about DRAW, those efforts may seem mundane, but they change people's lives.
This really come from an idea that Greg had to something that truly is providing relief for these people that wouldn't be receiving it otherwise. And to be a big part of that has been a really, really cool thing.
And I can only imagine what this thing is going to look like in 4 or 5 years. Will it still be Michigan-based? Will it be a national base?
This is a group for all ages. You can have elementary kids come fill a bucket and teach them that this bucket someday will be serving somebody. This will be serving a brother and sister somewhere.
That's what I feel my future is helping with DRAW. There's so many things we can do. Everybody has a gift that they can bring, whether it's just going and being a good listener, being able to work a chainsaw or repair a roof.
DRAW is a transformative kind of a thing, and it's transforming lives of the people that are participating as well as those people that are receiving the help. I hope that I can be transformed as well.
After less than a year, DRAW has become a place that I think people see hope. I think DRAW has become a place where people see that they can make a difference in other people's lives in tangible ways, in real ways. I'm excited for what the next few years will hold, but I'll always remember this first year. I'll always remember taking a shot on an idea and seeing hundreds of people joining in to change people's lives. I'm hopeful for what DRAW will be, but I'm thankful for what DRAW is.